In today's digital world, your data is more exposed than ever, scattered across various platforms and constantly under threat. Traditional, fragmented security tools just don't cut it anymore. They make processes cumbersome, slow, and complicated to manage when things go awry. That's why I'm excited to talk about Cohesity Data Cloud. It's a game changer. Cohesity offers a single AI-powered platform that not only protects and secures your data, but also unlocks valuable insights. It uses AI and automation to detect threats early and enables you to recover your data in hours, not days. With Cohesity, you're not just reacting, you're proactively building resilience across AI, cloud, and identity systems. Want to enhance your data security and management? Visit cohesity.com/datacloud. Cohesity, resilience everywhere.
Today's episode is brought to you by .tech domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, I was building my startup and went hunting for that perfect .com and found next to nothing. So I did what every founder does, settled. Here's what I wish someone had told me. You're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. It instantly tells investors and customers what you're about. Don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If your team is collecting large volumes of logs, metrics, and traces, but still struggling to get timely answers, Mesmo can help. Mesmo is an active telemetry platform that processes and enriches observability data in real time before it's stored or analyzed. That means lower data volume, lower cost, and faster root cause analysis across your existing observability tools. To see how it works, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. If you are building with AI coding tools, but your features keep breaking, you need to check out BrainGrid. It is the product management agent for AI builders. BrainGrid turns messy ideas into clear specs, tasks, and prompts that coding agents like Cursor and Claude can actually build the right way. Ship real software, not fragile prototypes. Start free at braingrid.ai.
At some point, the company became big enough for us to think about additional products or use cases. So we thought about all kinds of stuff, and what we chose to do, eventually we chose to try and go and expand ourselves into managing virtual servers. Again, we were focusing on endpoints and virtual desktops, and we said, oh, why not? Let's just try managing the virtual servers. It sounded like something easy we can do, and we failed miserably, right? We developed this solution. It took a year. There were dozens of solutions out there, many of them really good. It's funny, but we worked it for a year and we tried to sell it for another year. We end up selling a single license to a single customer. Not a really great ROI. My name is Yoni Avital. I'm the co-founder and chief evangelist here at ControlUp.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their
A
back.
company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve more. I was proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was
Yes, we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time. The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want it. Not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Labhart, and today how Yoni Avital is building you a workspace as intelligent as you, so you aren't tethered by tickets nor slowed down by tech. Yoni Avital lives in Tel Aviv, Israel, with his wife and 3 older children. The oldest kid is a boy, so Yoni and he try to see as many football games as possible. He enjoys shopping with his girls, though it's because he is their dad, not because he enjoys shopping. He likes to travel, hike, and enjoys a nice white wine in warmer weather. His most memorable hike was at Yosemite, when he started at 4 a.m. and came across a lot of wildlife. Yoni was in the virtual desktop space in the past. What he and his team realized was that troubleshooting these virtual experiences were incredibly complicated. They started to build an enterprise task manager to centralize a task management UI to control the endpoints. When customers started asking to use it daily, Yoni figured out they had something unique. This is the creation story of ControlUp.
ControlUp these days, we actually have a category, thanks to Gartner and a few other analysts out there. The category is called Digital Employee Experience Management, right? So what we do, essentially, we do a few things. First, we usually work with the IT teams at the customer sites, right? That's the main customer, right? The IT team, the chief, the CIO, the IT director, and their teams. And what we do starts usually with collecting telemetry and data from the end user's endpoints, right? So honestly, every company out there are using endpoints and apps, whether it's Windows laptops or MacBooks or all kinds of other more exotic endpoints. Our software sits on all those endpoints at the customer side, continuously collecting telemetry. This can be as simple as who is logged in and what kind of apps they're using, all the way to location and activity and performance metrics and stability metrics and stuff like that. So that's pretty deep. Now, what we do with those telemetry and data is quite interesting. We first give visibility to IT, so what's working, what's not working. If they have issues, they use our data to fix them more quickly. They can see stuff like productivity, right? So how does productivity look like compared to working from home versus working in the office? Or for this team versus that team, or if they just move from Zoom to Teams, which is happening quite a lot, is Teams performing nicely as Zoom from a stability point of view? And if not, why? And how can you fix that? So a lot about the actual digital experience, working with the apps, working with the endpoints. The main goal is to ensure a consistent and awesome user experience. Because as you can imagine, we found that the better the user experience, the more productive the employee is, which means better outcome for the business. So I will say that this is transforming quickly into what we now call autonomous endpoint management. So not surprising, AI is changing the whole thing. So even before the AI boom, we were doing a lot of automations to help with that consistent user experience, right? So imagine, let's take something very simple. If you ever work with a Windows endpoint, you know that if you don't have enough free space on your hard drive, that can become an issue. So a very popular and simple automation for our customers would be to detect when a Windows endpoint is about to run out of disk space and to run a script to try and clear all the temp files, everything you're not really using, to fix the issue before it even impacts the end user. So that's in the current or in the old days of the DEX and endpoint management. Today with AI, we are looking at going way beyond that. Right? So we use AI already, by the way, to find more issues, to be more proactive on complex issues that may affect the end user, and more importantly, to have way more autonomous processes to deflect issues before they become a thing. For the origin story, we need to go back all the way to probably the early 2010. So that's almost like 15, 16 years ago. Back then, I was working with Asaf, who was the other ControlUp co-founder and the original CEO. We actually had this value-add reseller business in Israel. We were working with the largest customers here, supporting mainly their virtual desktop estates. In a nutshell, virtual desktop was always a very popular way to deliver lines of business applications to end users via a central solution, right? So imagine a bunch of, if your company has 5,000 employees, you may have, 100 Windows servers in your data center. On the servers, you're running the top line of business apps like your CRM, your ERP, your Office suite, and end users just connecting to those virtual desktop remotely to run those apps. So it's more secure, it's more performant, it's a really great solution for enterprises globally. And we were helping those customers deploy, manage, troubleshoot these Citrix, VMware, Microsoft environments. We had a business, a nice small company, 15, 20 folks strong. Business were okay, it was all good. But we found that troubleshooting those big Citrix or virtual desktop environments is very hard with the current toolsets, right? I'll give you a very simple example. If you ever use Windows, again, you're probably familiar with Task Manager, which is a very simple to see what's causing CPU peaks, right? Whether it's an Excel process going astray or a Chrome browser with a big YouTube review or whatnot. So when you're all alone in your endpoint and everything is very slow, you just open Task Manager, find the offending process and you kill it. How would you do that if you have 5,000 user sessions running on 100 servers, right? Would you log into each one of those, open Task Manager and sort by CPU? That can take the whole day. And the tools that were out there were not real time. They were showing things based on 5 minutes aggregated data points and not in an easy to use, nice grid like Task Manager. So that was a big thing. So to be honest, we actually developed the first version of ControlUp for our own selfish internal needs, right? So we developed, I would say, like an enterprise task manager. That was really the main thing about ControlUp V1. The whole point was to have a central task manager-like UI that can connect to hundreds or thousands of Windows servers or endpoints and show you everything in a single place. It'll just show you all the processes, all the user sessions, everything going on. And we did that, right? We developed that for ourselves. It became probably the number one tool our technical team was using to fix issues at customer sites. And I actually remember the first time I opened the tool at one of our customer sites, a big travel agency in Israel, and they became very intrigued with what they saw, and they asked me, hey, can we use that? Is that something we can use? And I said, you know what? Yeah, why not? This is just an internal utility for sure. I left the binary for them to use. I came back the next week and I saw ControlUp UI open on all of their desktops. That's what they were using. No training, no nothing, just pure need, a very intuitive UI and feature set. And at that moment, I called Asaf, obviously my other co-founder, and I was like, yeah, Asaf, we have something here. This can be big. And that's how it started.
Tell me about the MVP, so the first version of the product you built, and maybe that's the version that you shared with customers, the internal tool, or maybe it's post that when you decided to make its own product. You decide, but tell me about that first version you built. How long did it take to build, and what sort of tools were you using to bring it to life?
I think the maturity of the MVP and the quality is really important. We had the luxury, because of the services company we were working for, we had the luxury of working with real customers. The first version I mentioned was very basic, very simple, and obviously it needed to be enhanced to work at scale. So what we did, I think for almost a year, probably between 2010 to 2011 or 2011 to 2012, we worked with most of our Israeli customers on enhancing the MVP. I recommend everyone who is trying to develop software, if you have the ability to work with customers all day in, all day out, just do it, right? I was usually visiting these customers once a week as part of the technical services we provided. So each week I went to one of these big customer sites, I showed them the new version, they help us test it on their environment, we can fix bugs and make the product more scalable. But more importantly, we got constant feedback. Hey, maybe you guys can add this metric, maybe you guys can add this view, this report, this action. And this was a very strong process, which actually enabled us to come up with this ControlUp V1 thing after a year. It became a really strong, awesome MVP. Very far from what we have today, but still something that can be used by enterprise customers from day one.
So let's stay on that for a minute. I'm curious about a core decision or trade-off you had to make in building that MVP. And that could be around approach, feature cut, and I could probably cherry pick a few things that you said that might be where you go, but I'm curious what that core decision was and how you coped with it.
Actually, it's a great question because we had exactly that type of big decision to make early on. As you may have figured out, the product we built can be used on any Windows environment. Right? Whether it's physical, just Windows laptops or Windows servers, or obviously virtual desktops like the one we're dealing with all day. And quite early on, we sat there in a room, I still remember that, with Asaf and with Eugene and Shlomi, the folks who helped us build the solution from day one, and with Amir, who was our first CRO, the first sales guy. And we were like, okay, should we go to a more generic Windows performance management solution? Or should we really stick into this Citrix virtual desktop area and make the product very specific? And I was all for going to the Citrix use case. I knew that it's a very well-defined problem. We knew that there was a big problem. We knew we can solve it. B, it's very easy to find leads that way, right? You go to the Citrix events, you go to the Citrix user groups. You know who the customer is. It's the Citrix team at the customer side. So I thought it would be a great idea to do that. We had some heated debates around that, but we Luckily for all of us, I think we went with that decision, and we were all very happy with that. For the next 4 or 5 years, everything we did with ControlUp was all about the Citrix VMware virtual desktop use case. And it turned out to be a great thing for us because of everything I mentioned, right? Identifying the customer, having a very specific use case we can fix and all that. So yeah, that was a big one for us.
Let's talk about something crucial. Your data. It's spread far and wide, and it's constantly under threat. And the truth, many organizations still rely on outdated, disjointed tools, making everything from daily operations to emergency responses slow and complex. Enter Cohesity Data Cloud. This isn't just another tool, it's a game changer. Imagine having one AI-powered platform that not only secures and protects your data, but also unlocks valuable insights. With Cohesity, you can detect threats faster with AI and automation. And if things go south, you're not stuck waiting days for recovery. You're back up in hours. Ready to build resilience across AI, cloud, and identity? Visit cohesity.com/datacloud today. Cohesity, resilience everywhere.
Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, when I was building my own tech startup, I went on the hunt for that elusive .com. Looked high, looked low, and guess what I found? Nothing. What I did find cost me an arm and a leg. So I did what every founder does under pressure. Threw in extra letters, settled for the less than optimal name. And here's what I wish someone had said to me back then. Noah, you're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. Tech startup, .tech domain. It could not be more obvious. It tells investors, customers, and anyone who looks at your website, really, that tech is at the core of your build. And I've kicked myself plenty since, especially when I see the clean and sharp names tech companies have landed on .tech. Nothing.tech, 1x.tech, Aurora.tech, CES.tech, Ultra.tech, Alice.tech, Neon.tech, Blaze.tech, Pi.tech. You get the idea. So take it from someone who learned it the hard way. If you're building a tech startup, don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice.
Let's move forward then. I'm curious about how you, from that point, matured and progressed the product. And to wrap that in a box a little bit, I'm curious about how you did and how you do it now, build your roadmap. How do you go about deciding that, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address with ControlUp?
We were always, I think, from day one, very customer-driven, or even I would say business-driven, right? So we had a solution, we knew it's solving a real problem, we knew customers are using it. Usually the roadmap was determined by two main things, right? One, our own innovative ideas and what we think would make sense, because we know customers are usually not seeing outside of the box. So probably I would say half of the roadmap was just our pure wild ideas, which sometimes works really great and sometimes not really. But the other half was heavily impacted by the big prospects and big customers' asks, right? They were asking for more visibility. They were asking for us to connect with the vendor APIs to have more data. They were asking for historical reporting and whatnot. And we made sure we followed that because they say the customer is always right. I think that's the case here. As long as you balance this with some innovations that only the founders or the internal team can come up with. So it was always a good mixture. It's the same thing these days, by the way. Maybe we'll take two examples, right? So obviously customers are telling, I'll give you two examples, right? One, customers kept telling us that Google Chromebook OS is becoming a thing in the enterprise, right? It's a rather cheap endpoint compared to MacBooks or Windows laptops. So we followed their advice and now we have full support for Google Chromebooks. That's like a customer-driven decision. On the other end, we are now developing this rather crazy AI insight service, which is looking on the global telemetry at scale. And we're using all kinds of LLMs to find meanings in that and give back insights to our customers. That's all fully coming from us, right? So I think that mixture is working these days as well, and I'm very happy with that. That's actually a good balance, good thing.
What about team? I hear you saying tell me about how you built that team and what do you look for in those people to indicate that they're the winning horses to join you?
Yeah, I think the team is really crucial. I know there are some founders who did it all by themselves. There are founders with a big team. Specifically in our case, we were 3 founders to begin with. Asaf, the CEO, I was the CTO for the initial ride, and Amir was the first CRO, if you will. We had a really great synergetic relationship, right? So Asaf was very strong on the the product and the engineering side. I was very strong with relationship and community and really understanding the customer needs. And Amir was strong with money, right? So he knew how to get some value from these customers while we were struggling with that. So it was a great synergy. And I think that's what initially convinced our first VC to invest some money, and B, really helped us for the first 5-10 years to really have a great team leading the company. And beyond the founding team, we always worked with really awesome professionals, right? I happen to really appreciate things that go beyond the mere skill set needed for a job, right? So obviously, if you have a developer, he needs to know how to write code, and the sales guys need to know how to post quotes and do some negotiations. But we always thought, actually, Asaf had a nice way to frame this. He was like, when we were interviewing employees, especially in the early years, he was like, hey, do we want to sit with this guy for a beer in a bar? Beyond the skill sets, right? Do we want to sit with this guy, with this girl, right? Is he interesting? Does the conversation flow? And you know what? That worked really nicely because we found ourselves with the first 50, 100 employees, we were all kinds of friends. And that had a huge positive effect on the business, right? People wanted to hang out together in the office and in the company events and at customer tours. And it made everything much nicer. The vibe, the atmosphere, it kept people here for a long time. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the secrets here of Mature. The team usually goes beyond the day-to-day corporate relationship. Maybe it's a bit cheesy, but I do think we're all family and friends in this venture, which is great.
This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. Building with AI coding tools is exciting until the moment things start breaking. You ask for a small change and suddenly 3 other features stop working. AI gets confused, misses edge cases, and loses track of your intent. The problem is not code generation. The problem is planning. That is why BrainGrid exists. BrainGrid acts as your product management agent. It writes clear specification, maps UX flows, asks the clarifying questions you forgot to ask, and breaks big ideas into engineering-grade tasks that AI coding tools can build reliably. It guides Cursor, Claude Code, Replit, Windsurf, and others so they deliver features that work and keep working. Founders use BrainGrid to build real AI-native SaaS products without a technical background. If you want reliable features instead of fragile prototypes, try BrainGrid for free at braingrid.ai. That's braingrid.ai. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If you're responsible for reliability, performance, or platform architecture, you already know the problem. Telemetry volume is growing faster than teams can manage it. Mesmo addresses this by moving observability upstream. Instead of storing everything and asking questions later, Mesmo processes telemetry in motion, filtering, transforming, and enriching logs, metrics, and traces before they reach your observability backend. The result is cleaner data, reduced ingestion costs, and faster root cause analysis using the tools you already rely on. Mesmo integrates with platforms like Datadog, Dynatrace, and open source stacks, giving teams more control without adding operational overhead. This is especially useful for platform engineers and SREs supporting complex distributed systems where context and speed matter. To see how active telemetry works in practice, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory.
Let's flip to scalability, and this will be interesting given, the size of companies you're building this for, how you're approaching it, all the things. I'm curious about how scale was thought up from the beginning, but also if there's been interesting stories where you've had to fight it as you've grown.
Yeah, I wouldn't lie and say that from day one, we imagined this is going to grow from 9 employees to 4 or 450 we are today. And there were years where we doubled the size in a few months. Scalability was always challenging, right? I do think that quite early on, we realized that this is crucial for our success, right? If you want to scale, you need a big enough sales team, you need a big enough engineering team, product team, you name it. And that happened to us gradually, right? Neither Asaf nor myself, we never managed a big team before that, right? We grew with the parts. I think luckily for us, it was in a reasonable rate, right? Each year we found ourselves managing, if initially it was 10, 20, 30 employees, then it grew to 50 and 100 and 200. So I think we had the luxury of growing with the part over the years. I think we have realized many times during this ride that we need to bring in experienced manager to help us. right? So maybe the VP of engineering is a good example, right? So we obviously will influence that as founders, but early on we tried to bring in professionals who had a lot of experience managing scaled environments. The same goes for the head of sales in the US or in Europe or the head of support. So I think we try to balance our immaturity but big enthusiasm with some highly trained folks coming in from the outside. And if you can nail that, that's a great thing to do.
As you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built with ControlUp, what are you most proud of?
Few things actually, but maybe I'll start with the first thing because that's really the one I'm most proud of. So I was on this customer call a while back, I think probably a few years ago, and the customer, it was an existing ControlUp customer that was working with us for a while, and it was before we even started the meeting, it was like, wait, I want to say something. I was like, yeah, for sure. I was like, yes, I just want to tell you that we are using your software for a few years now, the entire team, and it really made our lives better. It's easier for us to solve issues. We know our users have great user experience because of your tool, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. It really makes a difference, especially if you think that a big part of our customers are actually healthcares, IT teams in the biggest healthcares in the world who help physicians and nurses do their job. So when you're thinking that, like, to me, it was a very proud moment, right? To see customers on their own come and say, hey, you made our lives better. This is really great. So that's one thing. And the other thing I will say, and that's another story that I like to repeat and remember, is that one of the days I was sitting in my office here in the Israeli office, and I had to interview this guy, right? And he was waiting for me for a while. He was sitting in the main area for 10, 20 minutes because I was being delayed. So finally, when we met, he was like, hey, I want to tell you something before we start the interview. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And listen, I sat here, and every 2 minutes, another employee came to me and ask if I need some assistance or if I'm fine. Do I need water or coffee, or can he help me? And he told me, listen, I was in many companies, but I never seen so many folks caring so much about a stranger and asking for if he needs help. And I was like, wow, man, that's impressive. And that's exactly the kind of vibe humanity we're trying to instill in companies. So yeah, these two are probably two very proud moments for me over the years.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
One that comes to mind is that, so we, as I said before, we were very much focused on the whole Citrix virtual desktop use case scenario. At some point, the company became big enough for us to think about additional products or use cases, right? If you really want to grow a big company, it can't rely on a single product or a single niche. So we thought about all kinds of stuff, and what we chose to do, eventually we chose to try and go and expand ourselves into managing virtual servers, right? So again, we were focusing on endpoints and virtual desktops, and we said, oh, why not? Let's just try managing the virtual servers. It sounded like something easy we can do, and we failed miserably, right? We developed this solution. It took a year. Turned out this was right? There were dozens of solutions out there, many of them really good. Some of them are coming with the vendor tools. It's funny, but we worked it for a year and we tried to sell it for another year. We end up selling a single license to a single customer. Not a really great ROI. We learned a lot from it, right? Our instinct and intuition was never on that. It was almost like a forced decision. I think one of the last decisions we made without feeling this instinct behind that tells us it's the right thing to do. So yeah, a big mistake, but luckily we recovered. She's good.
This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Your coding agents have access to your code base. Maybe you even connected other tools via MCPs. But access doesn't mean context. Agents can't reason across MCPs. They don't know your architectural decisions, your team's patterns, or why the API was shaped the way it is. So agents look in the wrong place and deliver bad outputs. Then you spend time correcting. More loops, more tokens. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory.
Okay, let's move forward then, Yoni. What does the future look like for ControlUp, for the product, for what you're building, for your team, where the industry is going, all of the things?
So, yeah, I think no one will be surprised to say that we live in a fascinating time, right? Like the AI revolution, it started a few years ago, but I can definitely say that in the last 4 or 6 months, it really manifested into an encompassing, crazy revolution affecting everything we do. And it's very apparent in our market. I mentioned this before, but I can expand on that. So again, tools like ControlUp, they were always about fixing issues quickly and improving the user experience and allowing the customer to save costs on hardware and software and all that. With the birth of the LLMs and the AI technology we're seeing, customers now have really high expectations for what we can do. I'll give you one example. Okay, one example is that customers are expecting, and I think we are going there, to reach what you may call like zero support tickets. Okay, using a technology like ControlUp, right? So imagine that a big part of your customer support tickets to IT are based on performance issues or application crashing or Zoom not working. We think we can probably deflect 70, 80, 90% of those with the upcoming and existing AI technologies. But it goes beyond customer tickets, right? Imagine a workflow, right? A user wants a new application or he needs a new hardware piece. So all of that can also be automated with chatbots and with obviously some human in the loop for some decisions, but just the difference between the way we're doing things now. Maybe I'll give you one rather technical example to explain the craziness we're seeing. In Windows, one of the most complicated things to solve is the Windows blue screen of death. Maybe because of a driver conflict or some bad code or whatever the case may be, Windows may crash, right, with the blue screen. Before the AI revolution, to actually find the root cause for something like that, you really needed the top Microsoft escalation engineers to work on that, usually for days, if not weeks, right, to analyze dump files and source code and really come up with the root cause. That's a costly and a complicated operation. And this is something which inflects every customer on a daily basis. Today, our solution can, once we detect something like a Windows blue screen of death, we use the current AI technologies, and in seconds, we can come up with the root cause and with the suggested solution. So something that took very costly resources and a long time to fix can now be fixed in, honestly, seconds or minutes. And that's just one example, right? So I think the future is very interesting. The pace of change is really crazy. I'm not going to predict what will happen in the next 6 or 12 months, but I do know that we are aiming very high for like full-blown autonomous endpoint management. We want to be in a place where the IT team can really focus on new projects and initiatives that enhance the business rather than firefighting and ticketing and stuff like that. And I really think this is now doable with technology we have. So very fun times. We have very, very brave customers who are walking this path with us, and they are willing to test and try and break things. So yeah, I think the future is bright, and the future is going to be mind-blowing for sure.
Let's switch to you, Yoni. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to, and why?
First, I was always influenced from the folks I'm working with, right? Whether it's Asaf or Amir in the early days, right? Like Amir work ethics were a beacon of light to me. The dudes working 24/7. So it was infectious, and then I found myself also definitely in the early years just finishing the workday at 6 p.m. in the office and then opening the laptop at 8 p.m. to do extra more 4 hours with customers calls from the US. So that's heavily influenced by Amir. And Asaf honestly has the same crazy work ethic. So yeah, heavily influenced on that. And many of the folks I'm working with here in the office and in part of a realty are influenced me in a great way. I guess on a lighter tone, and I'm sure you've seen movies like The Wolf of Wall Street and the sorts. We in ControlUp, that's partly due to me. I'm taking full responsibility. We are trying to really combine between hard work and hard play. All right, seeing those movies, those dudes who do these crazy parties in the office and then outside the office, and trying to take themselves not too seriously while doing big things, that was a huge influence on my part. If you ever come out to one of our parties, you'll see what I mean, but we leave it at that for now.
Last question, Yoni. So you're getting on a plane. You're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world, and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
Funnily enough, maybe because I've been doing it for a while, I actually have those type of discussions quite frequently. I think the last one was like 2 months ago. So that's a good question. There are lots of things I can think of, but one thing I keep saying to those folks is try to work directly with the customer to validate the pain points and your solution. Right? That's probably the biggest one, right? Because sometimes you can sit at home or in the garage or your office and imagine things, and they may be great ideas, but when they hit reality, things may be very different, right? So if you have the luxury of working with prospects or customers, whether it's customers from your current business or friends or whatever that may be, do that and do that a lot, right? Nothing beats confronting your ideas and thoughts with the reality. If you can come with your MVP and actually do it in the real world, that's even better. And the more the merrier, right? Sometimes the first 2 customers will not find your solution interesting, but maybe the next 10 will. Don't give up so easily. Go try those 10, 20, 30 customers and prospects, but don't do it too late, right? Because maybe everything you thought is just very far from what's really happening out there. So yeah, that's probably the big one I would say to those young entrepreneurs.
That's fantastic advice. Well, Yoni, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for telling the creation story of ControlUp.
Thanks, Noah. Much appreciated.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story.
Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one. It's called Chat Concierge, and it's simplifying car shopping. Using self-reflection and layered reasoning with live API checks, it doesn't just help buyers find a car they love. It helps schedule a test drive, get pre-approved for financing, and estimate trade-in value. Advanced, intuitive, and deployed. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.